you guys, and welcome back to So Can You for a super special edition for a pattern tutorial that I actually drafted. Today we're going to be making a Primrose skirted leotard. Go ahead and screenshot this if you want to save those pieces. But before we get started, I want to give a super special shout out to our partners at Samantha Marie Design and Little Cocalico. The fabric I'm going to be using today is from Little Cocalico. It is cotton Lycra. This pattern calls for knit fabric with good stretch and good recovery. You want to make sure that you have great recovery. So I'm going to be using these Boho Floral from Little Cocalico on cotton Lycra. As I lay these pieces out, you can refer back to that screenshot or page 7 in the instructions for exactly what you need. I'm going to be mixing up my prints because I have these two prints here. The middle band option in Primrose really allows for some really fun color blocking. So I'm going to be using the stripes on the middle band, the lower leotard, as well as the back straps. For the floral, I'm going to be doing the bodice in those, which you need a main and a lining for the bodice, and I will be doing the skirt in the floral as well. Should you want to watch me cut all these out, I will have another video where I cut all of these a little bit later. But let's go ahead and get started. The first step is that you want to prepare all of your bands ahead of time. We're going to start with the center band. You needed to cut 4 of these, and so you're going to take 2 of each. You're going to match up the mains and match up the lining, just in case you're using those separate colors. And you're going to lay them on top of each other, right sides together, and sew down the short side seams. So when you take this over to your sewing machine, I've clipped it now. You just want to catch both of those raw edges together. And you are just going to repeat that with all 4 of these raw edges. You're sewing those together to make a big opening. And you'll do the same with the main as you do with the lining. Mine are the same color, but if you're doing it in a different color, that's totally fine too. So once you have those side seams sewn of the center band, it will look like this. So it's one big circle. We're going to set those aside because we don't need those just yet. Next, we're going to prepare the back straps. I am doing the Criss-Cross straps for this. It is optional to apply interfacing, but I would say it's important to apply interfacing if you have fabric that has good recovery but not the best recovery. You don't want these stretching out. So what we're going to do is fold these over long ways to create a tube, and we're going to sew down the long edges. Now I like to use a little trick for turning tubes. I will serge off a long serger tail, and then I will take my tube and I will lay that tail right in the middle and then fold it and sew down those raw edges. You see the fold is towards the left, and I'm sewing those 2 raw edges together. So you have a little loop and then a tail that you can just pull the tube right side out. Oh, it looks like I'm having a little trouble here. There we go. I swear it's easier than it looks. So once you straighten this guy out, you can repeat the same thing with the second band. Now that you have your back straps assembled, I like to press mine, especially the ones with the stripe. I just give it a quick press so that they are nice and even. And I like to center that seam right on the back side. And I will repeat that for both of the straps. And since I'm showing a leotard with a snap placket, the next option will be to add the leg bands for the snap placket, or prepare those. You just want to fold those long ways and then sew the small side raw edges. So you want those right sides together, and you're just sewing those short raw edges together. Once you have those sewn, you're just going to flip those out so that the ends are finished. That's what you want here. You're just trying to finish the edges of these bands. Once you have those flipped out, you can just set those aside. We will use those later. Now it's time to move on to our bodice. For our bodice, we need a lining and a mane for the front. I am using the same fabric for my lining as I am for my mane, and then we will need a lining and a mane for our back. We had needed to cut 4 opposites of our back bodice. We want to line up the front bodice with the back bodice, right sides together. We want to line up those shoulder seams, and we're preparing to sew those shoulder seams together. So we're just going to sew those 2 raw edges together, and we're going to repeat for all 4 of our shoulder seams, 2 for our mane and 2 for our lining. You will now have assembled 2 bodices, 1 mane and 1 lining. You want to lay the mane right side up and then lay the lining on top with the wrong side up. And you want to make sure that all the raw edges are lined up. Once you have all the raw edges lined up, it is time to get our back straps out so that we can add the crisscross straps. We want to sandwich the straps in between the lining and the mane bodices using the notches that you saw on the back bodice for placement. So when you're getting ready for this, you may just want to lift up the lining or the mane. If you are using 2 separate colors, you want to make sure that if your lining is a different color, that your seams that you made on your back straps are facing the lining. Once you have these all pinned down, we can take this to the sewing machine. We are going to sew to the opposite shoulder seam, and then we are going to pause to open up our bodice and add them to the other side. So let's start with the side that we pinned first. You see we've got our straps out to the side, and we are going to just sew these raw edges together, making sure we're catching all of the raw edges as well as the straps in our seam, and we're going to sew all the way around the curve of the front of the bodice to the shoulder seam. This is where some of you might get tripped up, but it's really simple. What you're gonna do is just open this bodice completely up to give you access to those straps. And you're gonna sandwich once you have access, you're gonna sandwich those back in between the other side of the back of your bodice. Now, take note that the strap that you aligned with the lower notch on the first side, you will have to align that strap with the upper notch on the other side, closest to the shoulder seam, to get that crisscross effect. Once you have those sandwiched in, you just sew down and you have completed your bodice. For this tutorial, I am going to be doing a sleeveless version, so I'm going to be showing you how to use the burrito method to close up the arm side. With your bodice still laying flat, your main fabric up, you want to flip one edge of the lining under the mane so that the right side of the lining is also facing up. That part is kind of like your tortilla. And then you take the other side here and you just roll it up. This is your filling for your burrito. You just roll it up nice and tight so that it's going to fit right in the middle of that arm side. Then you're going to take your main and your lining, and you're going to line up the shoulder seam as well as the full arm side. And you're going to just sew that curve together. Now make sure that your filling is as close to that middle seam as possible, because you don't want to accidentally catch that under your serger when you are sewing the raw edges of the arm side together. Okay, so it'll look just like this. Now what you want to do is you want to reach in the fill and grab that filling, the rest of the bodice, and you want to pull it and make it right sides out. So now you see that side of your arm size finished. Then you're just going to repeat the process with the other side of your bodice. You just want to roll that back up, attach, line up the raw edges, and you're going to sew down the other side of this curved arm side. Once you have that finished, you just pull it right side out again. Once these armholes are finished, all that's left is to close the side seams of the bodice. What you're going to do is you are going to be aligning the armhole seams. Okay, so where those two serger seams are, those are going to line up. So the main and the main front and the main back are going to line up. The armhole serger seams are going to line up right there. And the main lining, the front lining and back lining are going to line up, creating a straight line for you to sew. And you're going to do that same thing on the other side as well. So you take this seam under your serger and you want to just make sure that you catch both of the raw edges, especially that underarm point, because that kind of is a point of a little bit of, pressure there sometimes, right? So now you have completely closed that side seam. Looks great, right? And you're just going to repeat the same thing for the other side. You're going to open it up, open up the other side, line up the main with main, the two underarm points, which are the serge seams right here in my hand, and the two linings, the front and back linings of the other side. Once you have sewn your side seams to your bodice, it's time to attach your center band. You want to turn one band right side out because it's going to go on the inside of your bodice. You do want to take note of the little notches that you cut, and you want to line those up with the ends of the back bodice. And you want to align the side seams of your band with the side seams of your bodice. So one band will go on the inside of the bodice, and the other band will go on the outside of the bodice. So the one that goes on the outside will stay wrong side out. And you just also want to align those side seams with the side of the bodice. And you want to align those notches with the back of the bodice piece. Once you have those all lined up, you will note that you do have to stretch the band just a little bit as you are adding it on. So you want to make sure that you are lining that all up and prepared to stretch it evenly as you sew it on. All right, so you're going to sew the complete circle. So once you get over to your sewing machine, pick a place to start. I really like to start right at one of the back bodice points. That's just my favorite spot. Then you just want to take care and make sure that you are catching all of the layers of both bands and the bodice, the main and lining, all together in your serge seam as you add the band. And you are just going to sew around in the circle and add the band, the top portion of the band, to your bodice. When you get back to your starting point, you can overlap. I like to overlap about an inch, and then you'll just serge off. So you've got your band attached to your bodice. Then what you'll do is you can secure that serger seam. I like to use a knit picker to secure mine. And then you'll just flip the band down, both the outside and the inside, one main and one lining. All right, so now you have raw edges on the bottom of your band. If you were doing a crop, you can hem this right now using your favorite method and you would be done. You could hem that and be done. Or if you were, let's say, doing a peplum, you could add the peplum skirt right now. You would just put the bodice inside of the skirt and sew those raw edges, and you would have yourself a peplum. But I'm going to show you guys how to do the Leo. So we're going to set this aside and we're going to prep our Leo. So we want to put the front and back pieces together, right sides together, and we are going to sew down these side seams. So once we sew down the side seams, you will notice that I am doing a snap placket here. So I am not going to sew the crotch together. I am going to leave my crotch open, and I'm going to add 1 inch of interfacing to my crotch pieces so that I can add snaps later and it won't rip my fabric. Once you have added your interfacing, it is time to add your bands. What you want to do is take your band, and I like to quarter mine. So I make a little mark right at the center point and I line that up with the side seam. Then you're going to clip it in place 1.5 inches from the end and fold over the bottom portion of the like snap placket part. You're going to fold that over, creating a little sandwich. So the snap placket portion will be right sides together, sandwiching your band in between that snap placket portion. And then you're just going to sew your band onto your leg hole from the front crotch point to the back crotch point. And then you will repeat that same thing with the other side. You do already have the crotch portion folded, so you already have your guide. You can quarter that again and line the band up with the side seam, and then also line up the edge of your band with the folded portion of your crotch seam. And then just sew that band on just like you did the other side. You can see really well right now how the snap placket portion is folded right sides together to sandwich that band at the edge. And you just sew this down all the way from one side of the crotch, front side, to the back. And once you have sewn that, you just flip it to create your placket. Now, I didn't show adding the straight stitch because nobody wants to see me at the sewing machine, but you just add a straight top stitch to just secure your placket. And you can totally add a top stitch to have your bands lay super nicely if you'd like. It is optional to add the top stitch, but I think it gives it that little something extra. If you were wanting to create just the leotard, you could absolutely connect these two right now and make your leotard. You would just want to turn your leotard right side in, so wrong sides out, and put your bodice inside and sew that circle. But since I am showing you a skirted leotard, I will show adding the skirt. So what we want to do is we want the wrong side of the skirt to face the right side of the leotard. And then the right side of the skirt is going to face the right side of the bodice. So first I'm going to pin the skirt and the lower body leotard together. Remember, you want the wrong side of the skirt touching the right side of the leotard. Then you're going to place your bodice inside, and you want the right side of your bodice touching the right side of the skirt. So the lining is going to be what you see right in the center. That is the lining, and what is touching your skirt is your mane. So you're just going to pin this together all the way around. The bodice band is going to be pinned to the skirt and the lower body of the Leo, and you're just going to sew the circle. I accidentally didn't hit record here, but you're just sewing the circle of the lower body, the skirt, and the lower part of the band together. All right? Sew all the way around there. And then once you have it back on the table, you just want to secure that serger seam just like you did when you were sewing the band to the bodice to begin with. Now you're pretty much all done. You can hem the skirt in any way that you want. The last step that I have here is to just go ahead and add the snaps to my leotard. I'm not great at snaps. I have to look at the instructions every time. I don't have anything fancy. I just have something that I picked up from the craft store. And I just, see, they're not perfect, but they function, and this is for my daughter. So it works. So there you have it, snaps on the bottom of your leotard and our skirt, and we are all finished. I hope you guys enjoyed this tutorial and you learned something. This tutorial was super special to me, and I was very nervous to do it. Thank you guys so much, and if you have any questions, as always, you can hit me up in the comments, and I will do my best to answer those as quickly as possible. I want to give an extra special shout out to little Cocalico for partnering with us and printing this awesome fabric on cotton Lycra, and Samantha Marie Design. Thank you guys so much, and I will see you guys next time on So Can You. See y'all later. Bye.